Okay.
Well, this is the beginning.
Are you ready?
Kind of.
Okay. Ready. We're the Scooby-Doos. We're podcasting to you. Reviewing all the mysteries. If you're a fan of Scooby-Doo, this podcast is for you. We're the Scooby-Doos.
I think I got 7 of those words right.
Yeah. Hello, and welcome to the first ever episode of the Scooby-Doo's Review Podcast. My name is Tristan Sacre.
And I'm Brad.
We are boyfriends, and we like Scooby-Doo, and we collect together. A lot of you may know us from TikTok. And now we're coming at you through the ear holes. We are going to be everywhere that podcasts are available. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I have to actually upload this one to see how all that's going to work. So, yeah, to be continued. Welcome to the first episode. We're going to figure this out as we go.
Welcome. Hopefully I don't mumble the entire time.
Brad is not a social media guy. I very forcingly asked him to do this several years ago. I think we started talking about this podcast on like our second date. And now here we are 4 years later. We're finally doing it.
4 happy years together.
4 very happy years together. Yeah, before we get into the movie, I would love to talk about like who we are, why we collect. We met in 2020 on Tinder amid the Panini press that shall not be named. And the first thing that Brad messaged me was in one of my photos on my profile, I was wearing a Scooby-Doo, like, mask? Can we call them masks?
Yeah.
And what did you say to me?
Oh, you mentioned something about my Mickey Mouse shirt, how it was animated.
Yeah.
So then I was like, oh, I love how your Scooby-Doo mask has the characters on it, because in the whole show, they're unmasking everyone.
Yeah, so it was like funny that I was wearing a mask full of Scooby characters. And then it just went from there. And so we started talking about movies. We found out that we both loved Scooby-Doo 2002, the live action. And you mentioned that you had some collectibles and I had some collectibles. And then here we are. Many TikToks later, again, we have a series called Scooby Hunting where we go thrifting for secondhand scoobs. We are primarily secondhand hunters. Again, y'all probably know us from TikTok. But here we are with our first podcast episode. Number one. Had you seen this movie before?
No, but I've seen the commercials on TV.
Okay.
On Teletoon.
I agree. I had not seen this before, but there were a lot of moments I was like, oh, I've seen that. Mm-hmm. And then putting them in context was very interesting because this movie is all over the place. This isn't a Scooby movie.
Yeah, this is their first movie, you said, right?
Yeah, so this is episode number 1, Scooby-Doo Goes Hollywood. This was released in 1979. It was an animated TV movie. It was broadcast on ABC on December 23rd, 1979, to celebrate their 10-year anniversary of the show. So 2 days before Christmas. This was a Christmas special.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
and it had nothing to do with winter. It was sunny southern Los Angeles. Like, it was... I don't know why they would release this for Christmas, but... yeah.
I mean, maybe everyone at home on Christmas at that time cozied up, wanted to enjoy something.
Yeah, I guess. They were like, when will everybody be home to watch this as a family? I guess the day before Christmas Eve. I guess. It seems like a weird time of year to upload it. Like, to, like, broadcast it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a movie. There's not much of a plot.
It feels like they took the TV show format and they're like, let's just make it longer.
But I found that it wasn't like the show whatsoever. And we'll get into that. We'll go scene by scene. But this did not feel like a Scooby-Doo. Like, when I think of Scooby-Doo, I think of, like, haunted castles, bad guys, a mystery. This had none of that. Well, it throws you for a loop because it starts out with, like, these glowing red eyes on a crow. And the crow flies into a haunted castle while Shaggy is screaming. And we find out that, no, it's just a set. And they're recording an episode of the Scooby-Doo show.
Mm-hmm.
Like...
The biggest mystery is, was this always a show in their eyes?
Well,
or is it real?
Have you seen, like, the Barbie movies from the early 2000s? Like, the 3D animated Barbie movies?
Oh, yeah.
It's so Barbie. It's like they said, okay, these characters are now actors acting in this show. It's like they tried to like break the fourth wall. Speaking of fourth wall, during the opening, they okay, so we took notes. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but they are fighting off the red creepy creature of creepy cray, and it's like a crawfish. And then he knocks down a wall with his bare hands, and I'm like, girl, that was a load bearing wall. That was an interior wall. You cannot just go knocking down walls like that. What is this mystery? And where's the rest of the gang?
On the back lot.
Literally, learning their lines outside. This movie had nothing to do with Mystery Incorporated. Like, everything that was the gang element was thrown out the window.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And who can we blame for all of these shenanigans? So, it was based on the characters by Hanna-Barbera Productions, story by Dick Robbins and Dave Poole. Y'all, why? Directed by Ray Patterson. So it stars Don Messick as Scooby-Doo. I think he was the original Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, it was a familiar name.
Yeah, and he sounded like Scooby. Of course, Casey Kasem as Shaggy, Frank Welker as Fred, still getting Frank Welker, and he sings in this musical, in this movie. By the way, it's a musical.
Oh yeah, that threw me off a few
times.
times.
I know, yeah, the opening song, I was like, oh, okay, we'll get to it. Heather North as Daphne. I feel like we've heard her before. And then Patricia Stevens as Velma. She's like classic Velma Dinkley voice. She has it like snarky. It's all up in her nose. It's like so annoying. Yeah. So again, we'll go scene by scene. But did you want to read the general plot for the movie?
Sure. So when Scooby tries to make it big in Hollywood with little success, the rest of the gang try to convince him to return to his normal Saturday morning cartoon.
Yeah. So it's literally just Scooby isn't happy. First he doesn't think he's a star because like they're outside, they're at the studio lot. They've just come off of filming this episode, and then they're comparing themselves to this lady.
Also, we're gonna spoil the whole movie.
Oh, yeah, it's the review podcast. We're reviewing it. So this lady, this like Farrah Fawcett type, walks by named Natalie Splendor. And then Shaggy's like, you don't have a dressing room called The Groove. Did you see the dressing trailer? He calls it a dressing trailer.
It looks like a tour bus.
It looked like a tour bus. Like, you know, they like see the stars, like a star's roadmap. It literally looked like a tour bus. It had a canopy and it said The Groove on the outside. Like, okay, we see you. We get it. Yeah. And then the song starts. Well, first Shaggy makes a sandwich. A big sandwich at craft services, and he's like, we don't get food made for us. Yeah.
I mean, but would anyone want to make food for them? It'd be very exhausting.
Well, as we see later on in the movie, there's no point because they just like inhale literally everything edible around them. And things that aren't edible.
I mean, sometimes it's nice to have a little put together in a certain order.
I guess. And they just want to be cared for. And then, so they're like running through the sets while the song is playing, and the song, I don't remember what it was called. I wrote down
don't forget Scooby-Doo.
Yeah,
all caps. don't forget to remember Scooby-Doo.
They sing the name to remember is Scooby-Doo, and like Shaggy's just saying like everyone's gonna know your name. This is so old Hollywood. Like they're literally running through sets. This movie is just shorts. They're just doing little vignettes. Everything is a reference. A very old reference, I guess, from 1979.
Well, it feels like a little parody of Hollywood and what people think of Hollywood.
Yeah, it's very like a behind-the-scenes look, and I don't think this is what I was expecting from the very first Scooby-Doo movie. I will just say that off the top.
Mm-hmm. It's very, like, making fun of itself, almost.
Yeah, like, they took the characters out of their element, and then gave them no semblance of a personality besides, we're gonna be stars!
Yeah, it kind of feels like if the show is going to end and they're just like, hey everyone, that's a wrap, what a fun little show we had. It kind of gives you that vibe.
It does. This could have had a very different ending. We'll get to the ending. The ending is different. It's something else. All right, so we get the song. They're going through different sets. They're like running through sets. We get a glimpse of Arabian Nights. Do you remember that? We get like them dressed as like genies.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wrote down as a note, Shaggy upper thigh. He was in like a yellow diaper and you see like all the way up to his crotch.
Mm-hmm.
Like you see so much Shaggy leg. It was frightful. And they're like fencing. And then the title card. This movie is only, I wrote it down. It's only 58 minutes.
Oh, not even an hour.
It's under an hour, 53 or 58 minutes. It felt like the longest thing I have ever sat through. It was... Yeah, no, like, spoilers, I didn't like this.
Oh.
Did you like it?
I thought it was charming, but also I have nostalgia for some of the older Scooby-Doo stuff. Like, I would see it on TV with my sister. I haven't seen this one, but it's very like you put it on TV and then you kind of just have it in the background. At least for years later in my generation growing up.
The thing with this movie is it didn't feel like a Scooby-Doo.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the gang wasn't in it. There was no mystery. I think it was the mystery. I think it was lacking formula.
Mm-hmm.
It felt very experimental.
Also, too, it's like we're used to now, like every 3 or 4 years, like a brand new Scooby-Doo TV show comes out, and they're like, how do we rewrite the formula while still keeping it within the formula? But at that time, I feel like they were probably thinking, it's getting kind of old, let's just do something different.
Yeah, like, you can shake it up, but also try to keep it, like, true to itself.
Yeah.
Because even the gang felt, like, off-kilter. It felt like they were stars. It felt like they were working with Scooby. They weren't friends with Scooby.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we'll get to that. So, we get a title card. Shaggy decides to take Scooby to the CEO. Is that what we're calling him?
Yeah, I loved his office.
His name was CJ. But they go up to, like, the offices, and the security guard is like, who are you? Because no one knows who Shaggy is. Like, no one recognizes Shaggy. And he says to Shaggy, in the Mystery Machine, we get a Mystery Machine in this movie, he says to Shaggy, he calls it a pile of junk.
I wrote that down, too. It's like, by 1979, their Mystery Machine was already considered junk.
This security guard looked at the Mystery Machine and said, you can't bring that pile of junk in here. Excuse me? Excuse me? That is the most iconic vehicle to ever grace our screens, okay? And then Scooby comes out and he's like, oh, Mr. Doo, oh, please come in. Ask your chauffeur to bring you through here. And I'm like, okay, so we're getting
He's just the guy who carries the bags.
Right. We're getting the idea that Shaggy is like the butt of the joke. Mm-hmm. So everyone knows who Scooby is. Everyone loves Scooby. Scooby's a household name. The rest of the gang, however, no.
Also, it's kind of Shaggy's idea to say, hey, we deserve better. We deserve more. So Scooby was kind of content with just the food, but Shaggy's only wanted the service.
He wants the yellow brick road, and it's like Scooby is his Dorothy. Like, it's like he's the Scarecrow who needs a brain, and Scooby is the Dorothy with the red shoes on. So the Scarecrow's like, oh, let's go to the wizard. The wizard will give you what you want, and also hopefully give me what I want. So then, like, Shaggy's bringing Scooby along on this journey to be like, hopefully we can get some better deals out of this. But then he's putting in Scooby in all these different situations. Too many situations. There were so many vignettes. Have I said that yet? There were so many vignettes, and just when I thought they were going to stop, they did not stop. They kept going. So they go into CJ's office. Like, several Farrah Fawcett clones. Just saying, hi, Scooby! Wait, who are you? Like, they just, like waving at the dog, not waving at the man sitting next to him. And then they go into this office, and then they call him CJ. And they never call him anything else. And then Shaggy's like, can I call you Jay? And then he pulls an entire film reel out from under his shirt. And he's like, here, Scooby, put this on. This is our, like, pilot we filmed in the past 20 minutes.
They're trying to make a new show.
So we want to look at the first one. This is Scooby-Doo. How Scooby Won the West. So it's like How Scooby Won the West with a telecard. It said, like, starring Scooby, directed by Scooby, and then it said with Shaggy, and, like, Shaggy's, like, nailing it to a board.
And also I love the gag where it opens where it's like there's painted backdrops of the desert over the on-location desert.
Yeah. It's like It's a set, and like we see that in like wide shots. They were smart enough to have like the facades, but you can see like the structures behind the houses just holding up. It's a smart movie. It's very inside baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is everyone's perception of Hollywood in the late 70s, early 80s, and I think, spoilers, I don't think it worked.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to think about Scooby as an actor. I don't want to think about Scooby as like taking off the bad guy's mask and then going back to his dressing room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not the perception of Scooby that I want. It, like,
Mm-hmm.
breaks the illusion. Like, I'm so glad I didn't grow up with this movie.
Yeah.
I'm spoiling it. I'm spoiling it. We'll get to it.
Well, also, too, because wasn't Universal Studios having the Hollywood backlot tour that was starting to get really big?
Yeah. We went on that in Florida.
Oh. Yeah, because
Yeah.
this was the one in Hollywood, though. So I wonder if, like, because I know it was around much earlier than this movie, but maybe it was, like, around this time starting to get bigger and more commercial and more people knew about it. Because I feel like a lot of, like, 70s and 80s media, like that Alvin and the Chipmunks one we watched the other day,
Yeah.
where they also go to, like, what was it, the Wolf Mountain? No, the Frankenstein one. They also go to, like, Universal Studios, and it's the exact same backlot shenanigans where they're running around.
Yeah. Like, I think when people try to do Hollywood, it gives, like, it puts, like, a weird taste in your mouth.
Mm-hmm. It feels cheap.
It feels cheap. You don't want to think about your favorite character as, like, this is their job.
Mm-hmm.
You want it to be earnest. You want it to be a group of meddling kids.
Mm-hmm.
That said, though, like, when they were trying to do it right, like, they paid a lot of homage. I know in the Wild West sequence, when they were doing the facades, they actually did like a Buster Keaton reference. It was from 1928. It was from the silent film Steamboat Bill Jr., and it's when the house falls on Shaggy and he goes through the window. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Like, that's like a very popular stunt that, like, everyone told him not to do. Like, they did an entire house facade fall on, and he was, like, standing on his mark, and he went through the window. And they did it in this movie. So, like, they knew what they were doing.
A lot of homage to cinematic history.
Yeah. It just felt...
Stringed together.
Yeah. Like, what was the purpose? Like, I get... There is a resolve at the end.
Mm-hmm.
There is, like... Okay, I guess we'll just go back to what we were doing, which I don't think I like either. Like, the whole movie's for naught. But as far as plot, they kept going out, filming things, going back to CJ's office, presenting it to him, and CJ going, oh my, oh Scooby-Doo, what are we gonna do with you? Oh, everyone's favorite Bumble and Buffoon Ball. Like, that's the entire dialogue for the entire 50 minutes.
Mm-hmm. It's like, Scooby, don't quit your day job. That's the whole
Yeah,
moral of the
and then
story.
Shaggy's like, well, do we have something for you? Like, it knew what it was. It's not what we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what the perception is on this movie. Like, there is no Rotten Tomatoes score.
Oh.
On IMDb, it's a 5.8 out of 10. So, like, I think it's just, like, it's a do. It's, like, it's not a mystery. I wouldn't categorize it as a Scooby movie. This felt like a featurette.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it felt like a special, and I think it should have been advertised as a special.
I wonder if it's one of those things where it's like they had to put something out to kind of keep it relevant for
The 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get it. Like, it's just so inside of itself.
I know, especially for such like the first one. Well, I guess at the time they didn't know if maybe they would have more than one movie. They didn't know it would get to the point where there's a movie every year.
Maybe this isn't even considered a movie. They just throw it as Scooby's first movie because it's the first thing that isn't 28 minutes long with commercial breaks.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Well, there was commercial breaks.
There was. Oh, there was. Please. Okay, so for those who don't know, Brad is an animator by trade, and so he is our in-house animation expert.
Kind of.
Kind of. He knows what he's talking about. What did you notice in this movie, animation-wise?
Oh, some interesting highs and lows.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of parts where it's like you can tell they put a little more effort into it, but that could also just be animator by animator. Like, maybe one of them was a little more trying to achieve something, whereas other ones were just, you know, maybe like more green in the industry, so they were doing a little more basic.
And we noticed that scenes were passed off from one animator to the other.
Oh, yes. Do you want to get to that part?
Yeah, I mean, let's just get to it. It's going to be linear. So what did you notice in CJ's office?
Oh, yeah, there's like an ad break.
Yeah.
But when he runs into the closet to go scream, which, I mean, relatable, I do that too. he grabbed on the door handle and opened it up, and it was a square door handle, like a not a latch, but just like a cabinet handle almost.
It looked like a kitchen cabinet handle on this
Yeah.
closet door.
And then it just fades to black, comes right back, exact same background, exact same everything.
Yeah.
The door handle's now round, and it's like...
Like, he was so stressed out, he went into the closet, got out his toolbox, unscrewed the doorknob, changed it, did some chores, cleaned up, and then came back out. Like,
Yeah, I guess they're hoping that those like 1970s cereal commercials would distract you long enough between the breaks.
well, that's the thing. There would be like 2 to 3 minutes between the breaks, so you might not have noticed it. But watching it in this like front, like start to finish sequence, it literally like it's a square, fades to black, and then it's a circle.
Yeah, it's like, ooh, that feels a little... Like, if it cut to something else and then back, maybe you would not see it, but it's just like... Same thing, fading black, coming right back 3 seconds later. It's a little rough on that part.
So now, the other parts of this film that I found interesting, there is like a montage at the end, specifically from the show. And I noticed that in this feature film special, nothing looked different. Like, everything looked the same. The backgrounds looked like similar textures. Scooby looked very similar. And we've seen some pretty bad, like, off brand Scooby like fails. How did you feel about the animation as a whole as Scooby's first movie?
It felt like the same team from the TV show, I would say. And I feel like they probably didn't want to do anything too crazy and special. Like, I noticed at the very beginning when they're showing, like, that kind of... What we're familiar with, the castle and, like, the crayfish monster. Yeah. I noticed they had, like, a lot of camera moves and trying to be a little more fancy, like the money shot at the beginning, trying to entice the viewers to be like, oh, look, something different.
There were a lot of angles.
Yeah, and then just went back to being, like, flat characters.
Yeah.
There.
It was very Ryan Murphy. Like, it was really good for 5 minutes, and then everything went
yeah, I mean, I was impressed. Even was like there's smoke effects in the beginning, like the fog passing by. I was like,
there were layers.
Yeah, so it's like that takes a bit of time and money for planning out. So I mean, Hanna-Barbera, they were very innovative for, I guess, kind of not saving, but like really keeping television and animation alive. Because I remember it got to a point. I guess a little bit of history. It got to a point where like. I think 1959 would have been, where Sleeping Beauty came out. That one failed, and it was just too expensive. Like, animation was getting too expensive for what you got back with it, and then TV came out, but, like, you couldn't be doing, I guess what today would be, like, millions of dollars worth of animation just for a TV. So when Hanna-Barbera kind of would try limiting things, like the repeating background, or they would have characters designed, so, like, Scooby's collar, or, like, even in the Flintstones, where they barely have anything on, they still have like a collar on their neck, or like Wilma's necklace, so that way it could cut off the head, so that way their body would stay still and you just animate a head talking.
And that's why Daphne and Fred have scarves.
And the turtleneck.
And that's why Velma has a turtleneck.
Yeah, so it's like, they were very innovative for finding ways to make it more cost efficient, which overall was great, because for animation... it was getting really expensive, so it's like not a lot of people wanted to do animation, especially when more advancements in film were coming out. So it's like you could just be like, for saving money, you just grab your film reel, film it, fix something with editing, I guess like cropping out frames at the time. But in this one, they really did that, but I guess it also bit them in the butt. It looks a little too cheap at times.
There are some sequences in this movie where they definitely put some money in. There were a couple of musical numbers, there were some dance sequences, there was a lot of like interesting directing. As far as the animation, I found it, good for its day, but it's not like a feature film. Like, it's not up there with Disney, anything Disney was doing at the time, anything Don Bluth.
Oh yeah,
like,
Don Bluth even?
Was Don Bluth out?
No, that was late 80s, I think.
That was the 80s, my bad. Yeah.
I mean, he was still working at Disney, I think.
Yeah. What era was this for Disney? Was this like 101 Dalmatians? Was this the Great Eraser shortage?
Oh my god.
Was this the Xerox films?
Yeah.
Okay, so...
yeah, because that's late 60s, I think.
So then we'll call this, like, on par. And again, it's a made-for-TV. Like, if we look at some of the made-for-TV, like, Disney Toon animations from, like, the early 2000s, like all of the Intern movies, they probably look as flat as this. Like those Cinderella sequels. Little Mermaid 2.
Oh god.
Back into the Sea. But okay, getting back into the actual, like, plot. I have to say, okay, so they go to CJ and they're just like, CJ, this is our film reel. We want to do movies. We're not doing the Saturday morning cartoons anymore. And then it like transitions to the gang in Scooby and Shaggy's dressing room. And this is how they like transition. Daphne goes, "Leaving the show?" Fred goes, "You're kidding!" And Velma just goes, "Jinkies, jinkies, jinkies." Jinkies, jinkies, jinkies. Why? Why? This is what I don't like about how not only Hanna-Barbera, but also Warner Brothers in recent years, how they don't know how to write the gang. We'll get to Scoob, okay? It's the first episode we're already talking about how much I hate Scoob. You're given this dynamic Cinco? What is 5? You're given this group. You're given Mystery Incorporated. And everybody has a purpose. Everybody has a role. And it's very easy to, like, let the pieces fall where they may. Like, putting together the puzzle that is Mystery Incorporated is very simple. I don't know how, after 10 years of this show, they're this bad at writing the gang. Mm-hmm. Like, it's comical. All Velma had to say when Scooby and Shaggy said they were quitting their TV show was, "Jinkies, jinkies, jinkies."
Because she sounds like iconic snarkiness in the TV show.
Yeah, she's sarcastic. She's funny. She's a character. At this point, again, it had been 10 years. They'd had a couple of iterations of the morning show. They should know how to write these characters, especially for feature film. But for some reason, when Scooby goes to the big screen, the gang is dropped. It becomes a Scooby and Shaggy show. I do not watch... I will say this right now. I do not watch Scooby-Doo for Scooby and Shaggy. I watch Scooby-Doo for everybody. I watch it for Daphne, Fred, Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby, and the Mystery Machine. I want them all involved. I want them to have, like... They're a family. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't like this movie.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like they have a lot of good contrasts when the whole gang's together. Like, there could be the serious moments with the three of them, and then with Shaggy and Scooby kind of goof off, but it all ties together in the end.
Yeah, like, they know how to balance it, and they've learned. They've also lost the plot a lot. Mm-hmm. But Velma. Anyway, we'll get to it. Okay, so we've gotten through most of the movie. Like, it's just sequences.
Yeah.
And, like, I don't know if I want to go through scene by scene, but okay. They have a scene called Scooby Days, and it's a Happy Days reference. And it's called... They pan into Harold's malt shop. And then this big old, like, swinging biker dude comes in, and he's like, "Oh, I can't park my motorcycle in here. It's called a drive-in for a reason. I'll take a malt and a quart of oil from my motorcycle." Like, I had to Google it. Grease came out a year before.
Oh.
Grease came out in 1978.
Did they name drop John Travolta?
They also name drop John Travolta, which makes sense for, like, the newer Scooby-Doo shows where they had, like, Cher and, like, actual celebrities on.
Yeah, what was that show called again? Something with Scooby-Doo? The Scooby-Doo show?
Is it just the new Scooby-Doo show? I don't know. We'll get to it. We'll
Something
get to
like
it.
that.
It's episode 1.
It has a name.
We're not professionals yet. We haven't been through all of it yet. But there's another song. And it zooms in on Scooby's Rainbow Pinball Machine. Did you see this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I loved that pinball machine. I wrote down a note about it.
That's right. You find your note. I'm going to also talk about the song. Lots of levitating.
Mm-hmm.
They're levitating all over this poor diner. Like, the waitresses are like, "Oh, no, they're levitating again." Sorry, just... Okay.
We're using a photography camera, so film is not its specialty.
Just had to restart the camera, so at least we know we're half an hour into this podcast. Yeah, literally, it's 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, I really loved how in that diner they had the one sequence where they were dancing in the pinball machine. So that one was pretty interesting because it had, like, their version of pixel animation. Like, they meant to look like little sprites or characters from it, but it was all hand-drawn. I don't know, it's nothing too special, but...
They definitely tried.
Yeah.
But
I just thought it was interesting. I had never seen it hand-drawn like that before in an attempt to make it all, like, pixelated. Now that we know today how to make good pixel art, and a lot of good examples now.
It's just the song there was a song. I couldn't sing it to you if you paid me to. I wrote down the lyrics, Ruby Dooby Scooby-Doo guy. Ruby Dooby Scooby-Doo guy. I don't know. But it wasn't like, it was trying to be like, doo-wop-ba-doo, like, it's the 70s take on the 50s diner.
Oh yeah, very Grease.
Very Grease. It was very Grease.
But yeah, it threw me off again. Like, I forgot with the first musical that happened and passed that it was still a musical, so the second one came and I was like, oh yeah, it was a musical.
And there was so much time between songs, and the songs weren't memorable. So when the first one happens, it's like, you're gonna be a star, Scooby-Doo. I thought it was just the opening number, because then you get a title sequence.
Yeah.
But then we get to the diner, there's another song. We get, like, another 20 minutes later, there's another song.
Was there 3 or 4? I can't remember.
I think there was 4.
The very end, right?
Because there was a disco song.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah,
one.
we'll get to the disco. Okay, so then after this, they go to CJ. See, this is where CJ goes into the closet and screams, and then someone says, "Go back to your show." Does CJ say, "Go back to your show"? Like, you can't do this anymore. Mm-hmm. And Shaggy's just not listening. Shaggy needs to work on his listening skills.
Yeah, he's in denial.
Like, he takes Scooby to a very fancy schmancy restaurant in Los Angeles called the Black Top Hat Restaurant. And he tells Scooby he needs to rub elbows with the right people. And Scooby, like, takes his elbows, starts rubbing them. And he goes, "No, it's an expression." Which I found hilarious because in Scooby-Doo Meets the Loch Ness Monster, Scooby's doing that the whole movie. Like, Shaggy will say something and then Scooby takes it so literally. So, like, that's a Scooby that I grew up with. It's very... Do you remember Amelia Bedelia?
Kind of. Oh yeah, the book where she does everything.
Yeah, very, like, to leave her list. Like, she was a maid that if you said draw the curtains, she would take out, like, a pad and a paper and draw the curtains and then separate the eggs. Mm-hmm. She would, like, take the eggs and put them on different sides of the kitchen. I like that side of Scooby. I found that very, like, funny, classic, relatable. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I did like parts of this movie. When Scooby is Scooby, I enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Also, I can kind of tell how when they were back to that diner just one scene ago, sorry. It was like, there was all those 1950s teens. Yeah. And they looked very detailed. Like, you can tell Hanna-Barbera is like, oh, thank God, we can go back to drawing what we used to draw 2 decades ago.
Well, it looked like the intro to Grease.
Yeah.
Like, you know the famous Cheryl Canning? Carol Channing. You know the Carol Channing face?
Yeah.
Like, where she's like this.
Oh, her teeth.
Yeah, her teeth. And, like, in the intro, they're, like, doing John Travolta, and then, like, he's drawn, and then, like, Olivia Newton-John, and she's drawn. It felt like that. Like, it felt, like, purposeful. Mm-hmm. I feel like they kept trying to make references that were extremely current in 1979. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so watching it, like, we get it, but I don't think it hits the chord. Mm-hmm. I mean, similarly, how in Scoob in 2020, the villain is Simon Cowell. We'll get to it. We will get to it.
Well, maybe it was like, not so much they were thinking about longevity, but they were thinking about, like, how can we differentiate it?
They wanted people talking.
Because I feel like the first show, so I guess like 10 years before this movie came out, it is very timeless. Like, there's a few gadgets and gizmos that are dated, but overall, like...
And we'll get to how timeless it is.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it... Like, it feels like it could be any time frame, so maybe they wanted to finally have, like, very current, very, like, on the point. Because, like, with The Simpsons, for example, that one I know was successful for having, like, modern references at the time.
Yeah.
So, like, it definitely works in some cases. I mean, this came out way before that show, but...
Well, that's the thing, is, like, I watched the first few seasons of Friends, and I have no idea what's happening, because, like, a face will come on the screen, and you'll hear the studio audience hoot and holler, and I'm like, who is that man? Who is that man?
Yeah.
Who is that lady? We don't know who they are. Like, the only one I've ever noticed was Ellen Pompeo from, like, the first season of Friends was in, like, a later season of... Well, first season of Grey's Anatomy was in, like, a later season of Friends, and I'm like, oh my god, that's Ellen Pompeo from Grey's Anatomy. But, like... Other than Julia Roberts and the mustachioed man, Tom Selleck.
Yeah.
I don't know who these people are. I don't know.
But yeah, so I guess it was like at the time they were like, okay, we're done making the show be for generations to come. We just want to make this one special for right now and get the cheap laughs for the very current things.
Yeah. It's something.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely something. And I can see it doing well in 1979.
Yeah, like it's very pop culture of the day.
Yeah, but as far as rewatchability, there wasn't a single moment in this movie where I was like, wow, that was great. I would love to watch that again.
I mean, was it ever supposed to be seen again after that? Because it was a TV special. Maybe they were planning on re-airing it, but I don't know if they...
I mean, that's like an argument we can make with anything that was like broadcast on TV. Like people do reviews on shows like The Gilmore Girls, and they're looking at scenes that were filmed really quickly in 2002.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, did anyone think that they were going to go like with a fine-tooth comb over these things 30, 40 years later?
Yeah.
No. But I think creating art should always have longevity in its hands. Like in its sights, there should be nothing that's like produced that you wouldn't be proud to show. And I think that's just like artistic integrity in and of itself. Like if you're working on a project, you want your children, your great grandchildren to see this and be like, wow, that was really cool. You did a good job when you were like in your 30s directing a Scooby-Doo movie in 1979.
Until the executives get meddling into it.
Well,
and then they
we'll get to Warner Brothers. We'll get there.
Oh, yeah. It's also funny how they looked like they were in the Warner... Maybe it was Universal Studio a lot, but it looked like the Warner Brothers lot in some of the scenes.
It looked like any movie lot. Like, you know how... Oh, maybe it was Universal, because we just watched the new Scott Pilgrim show, and they were all in the back lots of Universal in that movie.
Yeah, because I know, like, Warner Brothers has their own also,
Yeah.
right? So imagine it was the Warner Brothers one, and, like, decades later, they own Scooby-Doo now. So it's like, oh, God.
Yeah, like, this movie was very Hanna-Barbera.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's the difference. Maybe we're just really used to Warner Brothers Scooby-Doo. We're not used to Hanna-Barbera Scooby-Doo.
Maybe, yeah.
Because, like, I like some of the movies that were all Warner Brothers. Like, Hanna-Barbera isn't my niche. Like, it's... Pardon me. It's not, like, where I would sit and rewatch and, like, put it on as a kid.
Yeah, and Hanna-Barbera also at the time, they were making a lot of TV shows. Like, I think at one point in time they had like the majority of anime TV shows. Mm-hmm. And I got to the point where they were just taking the exact same story, the exact same characters, and just making like a new design and calling it a new show. And it's like the same gags, the same...
Well, yeah, Scooby was named after a seal named Scooby.
Yeah.
He's a pre-existing character. Okay, but I want to get back into this. So they're at the restaurant. Sorry, we're so off track. They're at the restaurant. Scooby puts on a pair of pink sunglasses with blue tinted frames. And he's wearing like a red coat and a beret or a top hat.
Yeah, some of those like artist looking
And
outfits.
the only thing I could think of was, Scooby, those so don't go with that sweater. Like, why are you wearing pink sunglasses? And then he's walking through this this crowd of extras in this restaurant. Did you write down what these girls said?
No, but I noticed something different about them.
Okay, so the first thing we hear when we walk to this restaurant is this amazing extra saying, and I said to her, Farah, if you haven't been to Florence, you haven't been to Italy. I love her. We don't, oh my God, like, we don't even see her face. It's just the back of her head. She's talking to a gentleman, and she's like, and I said to her, Farah, if you haven't been to Florence, you haven't been to Italy.
Iconic.
Iconic.
Yes.
That's my only takeaway from this movie is that one extra.
Yeah, because like everyone's face in that restaurant was so much more
angular.
Yeah, I feel like the caricatures of probably rich famous people at the time, because they all looked like very different. Like they were probably real people.
That's funny.
Everyone else, like in that 1950s diner, looked very generic. They all had the same triangle head.
They all look like Archie.
Yeah,
they look like Archie comics. I get that. I see it. There was that one girl facing the camera with like the really like long sharp nose and like chin. Like she looked like a Cruella de Vil type.
Yeah, like I feel like that restaurant probably had a bunch of people who are real and we don't know any of them. Like you said earlier, it's like the references just today.
Just over our heads. Yeah. Well, and I think there's a couple of guest stars. I think we passed over the part where they go roller skating, but they talk about things in like such a way that you're supposed to get it, and they're like pausing for you to laugh. And I'm not going to talk about them because I don't remember them. I don't know what they were talking about.
Oh, and the weird laugh track that I think threw me off.
Yeah, And that's the thing, like, when you're watching a Scooby-Doo movie, there's no laugh track.
Yeah.
We'll have to see. We're getting into these, like, 70s and 80s films. We're gonna have to see how much, like, when the laugh track stops.
Oh, probably, like...
The Zombie Island.
Yeah, I feel like it's probably Zombie Island.
Okay. Well, we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll see. Okay.
Also, like, in that same restaurant, more weird animation things. It's like this whole gag of Scooby digging in the punch bowl because he dropped his cup in the spatula. The
punch
ladle.
bowl.
Yeah.
He drops the ladle and he's digging in the punch bowl.
But then it's like, so that's probably an animation thing. But then in the part of the background where the painted is, there's like several cups of punch like stacked up right beside the punch bowl. I'm like, just grab one of those.
Not only that, but then Scooby takes a single bun, like a bottom of a bun, and puts the entire buffet on this one piece of bread. And then everyone's looking at like the empty buffet like, what's going on? And then they cut back and oh yeah, it says Scooby barred from local restaurant on the, like, it fades out into a news story. The star Scooby was barred from local restaurant because he ate the buffet.
It's a buffet unless it's not all you can eat.
He also didn't pay.
Oh, true, he did run away.
He did run away. Maybe that's why he was barred. It wasn't because he ate everything. It's because he didn't pay. He dined and he dashed. But, like, they're reading the paper, and then we're finally back with the gang. Again, the gang's not in this movie. Mm-hmm. They're in it for maybe 5 minutes of screen time, and sometimes they're just, like, yelling things.
I feel like they're supposed to be part of the story, where just, like, something between all the weird gags and jokes of, like, here's a movie reference. They're like, oh, Scooby, we miss you, Scooby. We wish that you were still here with us. And it's like, okay, well, you guys aren't doing anything.
Well, they're talking about it, and then, like, Daphne's like, poor Scooby, and then Fred's like, poor us. Without Scooby, we don't have a show, Daphne.
They just want their money.
Yeah, and I think that's what took me out of it, because I didn't see Fred Jones anymore. I saw Frank Welker being like, oh, well, now we're out of a job. Like, it was so... And then Velma brings out Scooby's baby book, and she's reminiscing, and she's like, remember the day that we got Scooby?
Oh, that's a big point I want to talk about.
Yeah, the lore.
Yeah.
The lore.
Did you recognize it?
No?
The lore of what that first dog was?
Who's the first dog? Okay.
Oh my god.
Okay, so it's called Grillo's Pets.
Gorilla Pet. I don't know.
And then they're looking at a little white yappy dog, and Shaggy says, he lacks character. To a dog.
I feel like there's a lot of depth to that, though.
Okay, please explain, because I went over my head if it was anything.
Okay, so this is something that... I don't know if it was like an inside joke, or maybe it's just a coincidence. I'm reading too much into it, but I remember learning that when they were first designing Scooby-Doo for the show, because they wanted a dog in it, they were going to do their classic Hanna-Barbera, recycle everything, and they were going to take Hot Dog from Archie. You know, the white dog with the shaggy bangs?
Yes.
They were going to take Hot Dog, but then somebody on the team was like, no, like, that dog doesn't work. We don't want that dog for the show. It's not going to be a big thing if we just have the same recycled thing. Like, people are just going to see Hot Dog.
Yeah.
So then I feel like when Shaggy and them were looking at this dog, and it was, like, pretty much the exact same as Archie's, like, I guess, Jughead's dog.
Yeah.
And he says, oh, it lacks character. I'm like, that's why they didn't go for that dog.
That's amazing.
So I feel like that was probably intentional.
It was a jab.
Yeah.
Oh my god. And so then everyone turns around and they see this little Scooby, and he's like tripping over his water bowl, and he's like all limbs. And Shaggy goes, everyone's like, what about this guy? And Shaggy literally goes, maybe too much character. Shaggy didn't want Scooby?
I know.
Shaggy's the one that didn't want to adopt Scooby-Doo?
That had me flabbergasted. He's like, ugh. It's like, oh.
He's like, oh, that one's a little bit too much. Like, oh, I don't know, guys. What? Excuse me?
Poor Scooby. Wasn't loved.
We have gotten so many Scooby adoption backstories. It's different in every single franchise. We don't know where Scooby came from. I think they're all different iterations. Like, they clone him. Mm-hmm. They just find him. But no, that threw me for a loop that Shaggy, of all people, was like, oh no. Maybe, I guess. Like, Shaggy settled for Scooby-Doo.
Mm. He was there, what? I guess there was only 2 dogs in the whole pen.
There was 2 dogs in the entire pet shop. It's like, well, That one's boring, and this one's a little bit of an idiot. I guess we'll take the idiot. It'll make good TV. That was Shaggy's only. Again, that's all I think about. All I think about is money.
Mm-hmm.
I just
exploit this dog for cash.
I'm like, he looks exploitable, and he's too stupid to ask for more. Oh my god. Okay, so we got a baby Scooby. Okay, finally, we're at the end of my notes. Thank God. Okay.
Oh, look at the second page of mine.
I'm glad you got some, because after Baby Scooby, I like exited this movie. I was like, I am so done. They are ruining this for me. I wasn't happy with where they were going with it. I needed it. Did you like this?
I thought it was charming in a sense.
I checked out.
Yeah, I kind of checked out too, but it was like, it's weird. It's like, I feel like the franchise is so long running and old that like you have to have a different set of lens when looking at each era.
Because after this is when we got the 70s number. The disco number.
I wrote down a note saying that I feel like you would like that, and
I don't even think I took down. No, I didn't make a single note about the disco number. I did make a note that they also talked about Scooby's first birthday and showed pictures, and every single person had an entire cake on their plate.
I like how also when they're like flip the page over in the year, was it the photo album of Scooby memories, and it's like page 2, like here's his first birthday. He's sitting right in front of the pet store again. I'm like, oh, well, they just gave him back.
And that's the thing, it's like, it's the second page. You didn't take a single picture in a year. The day you adopted him, and then his first birthday. Well, maybe he was almost 1.
Yeah, I wrote down, it's like, to be fair, maybe his first birthday was the same day they adopted him, and they're like, let's celebrate his first birthday right now, because he's probably not a fresh puppy at the time.
Fresh puppy. I mean, yeah, it's just, again, if they wanted to add lore, do it differently. I mean,
also 70s, what lore is there in that era for these shows?
Like, it's again, we're so privileged to sit here and be like, it was bad, but knowing how much this franchise can offer in a movie, like,
Looking
even
around.
plot wise,
Yeah.
like, not just like collectibles, but like even in backstory, like we get a lot of stuff. Like, we know that Fred loves traps, right? Not a single trap in this movie because there was no mystery.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that Fred is known for is out of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Daphne's always the damsel. And then later in the movies, she's a badass.
Mm-hmm.
In this movie, she's not fighting anything. She's fighting her inner turmoil because she wants Scooby to keep her royalty checks flowing. Like, there's nothing that's like giving purpose.
I'm honestly surprised that the rest of the gang were there.
Well,
I feel like they, knowing like what came later with the show, where they completely got rid of Fred and Velma, that I'm surprised they're there. So maybe this was like before that decision came.
Was the Flim Flam after this?
Yeah, that's 80s.
Oh no, we're gonna have to watch Flim Flam.
Well, yeah, this is the first movie. We're not going backwards, going forward.
Okay, I feel like we need to restart the camera. Can we restart the camera? Okay, and then we'll wrap this up.
Well, I will say, if you watch this movie, that Cherie and Scooby, the disco song, I kind of liked it.
You like the disco song?
I wrote down that I feel like you would have this in the car as like a road trip song. Also, they did a good animated sequence for it, like a lot of effects.
My love, they can't hear you if you walk away.
Oh no. First time.
First time, and also we are doing this zero budget. This is existing equipment, haven't spent a cent. So it can only go up from here. The lighting isn't perfect. I'm sure the audio isn't perfect. But we're here.
It's okay. You only go up from here.
Yeah.
Hopefully it didn't curse us.
You know what? The technology may fail. Okay, so we got the disco song, and then we get... I wrote down that the cast starts singing. Is that the disco song? Like, we hear Frank Welker sing. Or is that the cast singing Scooby-Doo, Where Are You?
I think it's some... Oh, so that was where... I think they were singing Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? And that was like all the flashbacks.
Here's the thing about this movie. There is no linear story. It's literally just a bunch of vignettes and montages. They literally do a Sound of Music spin-off, spoof, called The Sound of Scooby, where Scooby says, "The hills are alive," and then falls off a cliff.
Very Looney Tunes.
It's very Looney Tunes. It's very Looney Tunes.
Mm-hmm.
It's very Looney Tunes.
And poor Scooby's getting injured in like every single sequence.
Yeah, and Shaggy, his so-called best friend, who didn't even want to adopt him, is the one putting these thoughts in his head. Like, he's the ideas man. He's like, Scooby, you deserve better. So what we're going to do is we're going to physically torture you, publish it, send it to our boss, and you're going to make millions, and people will adore you. Meanwhile, everywhere that Shaggy turns, no one knows who he is. Everyone knows Scooby. Scooby's already a household name. Mm-hmm. After this montage, it's announced that Scooby-Doo is no longer going to be on his Saturday morning cartoons. And we get the hearts of America through the lens of children. And we see this little, like, it's a Scooby-Doo fan club, but it's just it's a wooden box on the ground. If it were a treehouse, it would have been better.
Oh, it's like on...
Yeah. It's an open-faced...
Crate.
With a bunch of kids... And a giant TV up in the corner, and they have like a picture of Scooby-Doo painted outside. It says Scooby-Doo Fan Club. Adorable. Like, adorable. You're tugging at heartstrings here. And they're like, what? Scooby's not gonna be on our cartoons anymore? What? And then there's two like little blonde children sitting on a couch crying. Like, they didn't earn this.
Yeah.
They didn't earn it. Like, what are you trying to do to us? How did you feel about, like, the montage?
Which one?
The montage where they're singing Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? And you can hear Frank Welker sing.
Oh, yeah. Was that part of the one where they were like, Scooby-Doo, we need you? Or is that before that?
That's when they're outside. That's after the children.
Oh, God, there's more chanting for us.
There's even more chanting.
Demonic chanting.
So they have this, like, part where... The gang starts singing to Scooby like, we need you, Scooby, Scooby-Doo, we need you. And then there's a montage of like this show.
Oh yeah, that. Okay, I thought that was earlier. But yeah, it's like literally they just took clips, not even from like the whole show, like just from the opening sequence.
The good animation.
Yeah, because you know how like in the TV show, the first one, like the opening sequence was mostly like clips from the show.
Yeah.
So they were just recycling clips. It's the exact same thing, but maybe a little bit longer. But it was like they literally just took all the old clips and played them out. And it's like, it really, for me, felt like the show was ending at that point. Because it's like they were probably canceling after that. Because like,
yeah,
remember all the good times of Scooby on the show? Well, say goodbye because he's never coming back.
Well, also, it's like, remember all the good times, and it shows like the zombie, the werewolf, and then it shows a sequence of a chicken pecking at a worm. The worm goes back into the ground, and so the chicken pecks Scooby's tail.
How's that a good moment?
Like, what are these clips? What are they pulling from? Who oversaw this? Who directed this?
It could have been a technical thing where it's like these were probably the clips that they had left. Because I know a lot of time, like especially that
a chicken.
Well, I know that Hanna-Barbera was known for trying to save a lot of money, so they used to scrape off the cells to reuse them. You wouldn't save the cells unless they were like you wanted to keep the sequence for some reason.
Oh my god!
So these were probably like what they had left, unless it was like footage they just like snipped and put into the thing.
It felt random.
Yeah.
So we get that. We get the crying children, and then we're at the end of the movie, and they go... Well, we get... Oh, no, that's not even the end of the movie. After this, they go to the Chinese theater in L.A. Mm-hmm. They watch Super Scoob. He picks up Lois Lane on a rocket, drops her, then picks her up, and then she steps on his cape, and then he flies away and trips her again. And then we get The Hills Are Alive with The Sound of Scooby, and then he falls off a cliff. So we're like 98% done this movie, and they're still showing us little vignettes trying to convince the producer to give him his own movies.
Oh, yeah, and also something I didn't notice until just now is like, I think it was at first Shaggy was trying to get to make a new show, and then he was trying to... So they showed like all the gags of existing shows, and then he was trying to do film, and they switched to gags based on films. And then I think at some point, maybe before or after, I can't remember the order, it was like they were trying to then do primetime TV, so that's when they're doing more like primetime gags instead of just like regular shows. Because I think there's probably a difference between the two at the time.
But considering that this thing was under an hour, this was the longest thing I have ever watched.
The longest nothing.
It was the longest nothing I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, like, every single thing of Scooby that comes out, if something else comes out after it, then you might as well say, well, thanks for existing, because if you didn't exist, then who knows if it would have continued, right?
I wanted so bad to love this.
Mm-hmm.
I really did.
I think you're going to be disappointed with a lot of the old ones.
Well, there's only 4, and then we get into Zombie Island.
Mm-hmm. But maybe it'll be interesting, because, like, I have the nostalgia lens on these.
I'm excited to see.
You don't, though. So you're gonna be very brutal.
Well, okay, no. I wanted to love this. I'm gonna give it an honest rating. We will rate it at the end of this. We're almost there. So if you're still listening, thank you. By the way,
thank you.
The end of this movie. Oh, there's another sequence after the Sound of Music. The magician.
Oh yeah, I think there's like some celebrity who had her own talk show.
There was magician, and then disco was the very last song. Oh my god, there were 4 songs in this musical.
And I think we got the whole thing out of order.
Yeah.
We wrote it down and we still got it out of order.
I made 3 pages of notes, and I still can't remember the sequence of this movie because it's so all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was the love ship. There was the love ship with the doc, and the Charlie's Angels spinoff called Scooby's Angels. There were
Farrah Fawcett was there.
So many vignettes. Completely unnecessary. The movie should have been over, and they should have done like the casting of Scooby when the kids were crying. The kids are crying, and then they have another 2 numbers and another 4 like sequences.
And then there's the most demonic thing ever. It's like, we need you, Scooby-Doo.
We need you, Scooby-Doo. Yeah. We need you. Okay, so the end of the movie, he's in CJ's office, and then Shaggy's like, what are we gonna do? Nothing's working.
I don't think they could have fit like more than 3 people in a room, so they added this weird echoing effect, and it sounds like they're at the bottom of a well screaming for help.
Well, apparently it's the world outside this man's window. Like they're like, take a look for yourself, and it's just the backs of Daphne, Fred, and Velma, and they have these giant signs that just say Scooby-Doo, we need you, and then it like the camera angle flips, and Brad was like, oh, it's just them.
Oh yeah.
And no, apparently it's the entire world, just little circles as heads as far as you can see, with like blimps, hot air balloons, planes with like the banners flying.
God.
What?
The whole world reunited, and
the whole world is like, Scooby, no, you belong on TV, not in movies. Was that the point of this movie? Was that Scooby-Doo can't do film?
I mean, I have to disagree.
Was you like this movie?
No, I disagree. They can't do film. I feel like the later films turned out pretty good.
In this time and place, what if everyone was begging for a Scooby-Doo movie, and so they made a movie so bad that at the end, the entire world was like, go back to Saturday morning cartoons.
Oh my god, probably yeah, I can imagine them doing that. They're like,
Hanna-Barbera's like, we'll give you exactly what you want, and it's gonna be terrible.
Like, don't ask us to put more effort into this.
Oh, you know what? That's it. You know, my notes are on the ground.
Mine are done too.
I need to
cleanse your eyes.
I need to go watch Zombie Island. Okay.
Do we have anything from that era? I think we do.
We have the Bendables.
We have the board game.
We have the board game, the Bendums. I think the board game's older. I think the Bendum...
78.
Is it 78?
Yeah, we have some old stuff.
Yeah. There is only one way we can rank this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Out of Scooby Snacks, out of 10,
10.
How many Scooby Snacks would you give this film?
I give it a solid 5.
You're agreeing with the general population. IMDb is a 5.8.
Oh, well, it's more like a 6.
I call it a 5. You're 50%. You half like this movie.
Yeah, I feel like it's very much because it's also their first one, and because it's so old, and because they were probably still figuring things out, even though they did have 10 years.
Well,
I feel like it's their starting point, so it feels like it should be very neutral. And also, it's like, I don't feel invested enough in it to hate it or love it.
50, yeah. The nostalgia's not there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm nostalgia for Scooby. I felt nothing for this movie.
Yeah, because I know like the later ones we'll be coming up with, they have more of a story, and whether it's good or not, we'll find out. But it is a story. This one, yeah, like this one, I think they probably thought that, because I think at this around the same time, like 70s maybe, there was a lot of Warner Brothers, like Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, like they had their own shows, their own little mini movies where like I think there was like Fantasy Island
Mm-hmm.
and like other weird situations. So I feel like maybe they were trying to be like, oh, like these characters can hold up on their own. You watch them for the characters, but then they didn't give them any characteristics that made sense of who they are or story. So I think it shows that like if the characters are just thrown in a random situation without any rhyme or reason, they don't hold up as well as they thought they probably did.
Well, that's the problem with like a lot of the Disney Channel original movies. Like the ones that got shows, like when you take the Proud Family and throw them on a tropical island, when you take the Even Stevens family and throw them on a tropical island, when you take Wizards of Waverly Place and throw them on a tropical island, it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just say they're all going on vacation and then have the same dynamic and expect it to work. So for this movie, I think it's considered the first movie. It's Scooby Goes Hollywood. This is like their first feature film. I gotta give it a 2.
I also just remembered that in the only time they referenced the name of the movie in the film was when they were complaining about how Scooby's fame is getting to his head. Like, well, Scooby's gone Hollywood.
Scooby's gone Hollywood. It's a negative.
Yeah, and I was like, ooh.
Yeah, like when they say the name of the movie, it's because they're mad.
Yeah.
Again, as a movie, it's a 2 Scooby Stacks. I'm giving it 2 Scooby Stacks. As a special, if I were a kid, maybe that's the problem. If I were a kid in 1979, and I had just spent like the majority of my life watching Scooby-Doo on Saturday morning cartoons, and this came out, rocked my world. It would have rocked my world. I would have thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like if you're watching the shows, it's like, oh, a whole hour? Wow. Because it would have been a little bit longer with all the ads between them.
Yeah, it probably was a full hour special.
Mm-hmm.
Like a 7 to 8.
Yeah.
But as a movie, as we know movies now, and as we know Scooby movies now, it's not a Scooby movie.
Yeah, and it's not like good stuff was invented in the 1980s, so...
There's just no mystery.
Mm-hmm.
I need a mystery. I need them solving crimes.
Mm-hmm.
I need them to be bad. Like, bad crimes.
Mm-hmm.
I need everyone to be snarky.
Yeah, it's not even bad enough to be funny. It's just sad. It's just disappointing.
And we've seen musicals. Like, musical Scoobies can work.
Would we consider this a musical? They have like 3 songs, but...
It's 4.
4? Oh, but they just started random songs that mentioned Scooby-Doo, but they felt like they were...
Well, it's not a diegetic musical.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're not singing... They're like dream sequences for film. Diegetic is like stage fright, where the whole point is they're wrapped around like a singing competition, and Fred and Daphne are on stage with a guitar singing. That's diegetic. Like they're in the world singing.
Okay. I learned something new.
Well, we'll get to the... There's a couple of Scooby musicals, but yeah, that was it. That was the first episode. That was Scooby-Doo Goes Hollywood.
Yeah, and it was a long while before he went Hollywood again.
Yeah. Join us next week for Scooby-Doo and the Reluctant Werewolf. No, not next week. Oh my god, no. It's monthly.
Monthly?
We're doing this monthly, by the way.
Oh.
If you're still here, we're doing Scooby Tuesdays. The first Tuesday of every month, we're uploading this podcast. For now, if this ever gets us to a place where we can afford to do it more than once a month, we'll let you know. But for right now,
yeah, starting with a longer time frame just to make sure we get our grounding in our feet.
Yeah.
Then we'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
High hopes.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for doing this. I know you're not an on-camera boy, so
No.
I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, you're the personality. I'm just there.
No. We balance each other out. You're much more grounded.
I'll have to see myself in film first before just determining that.
Well, you look cute.
You look cute.
Thank you for watching. And as always, thanks for listening. Bye, guys.
Bye. Congrats. We did it. Yeah. And we're both sweating like dogs. We did it. Something about my polyester pants wasn't a good idea.
Please open the door.
We Scooby-Dooed it. We Scooby-Did it.
Oh, my butt.
I hope you keep that in.